The following is a presentation of the High Spot Podcast. Making their way to the ring, talking about the world of professional wrestling, the team of Jeff Martin and the trendsetter, Bryan Perga, the Jersey Wrecking Crew.
The people have spoken, and you know what? They want more of the Jersey Wrecking Crew. Ladies and gentlemen, that is correct. You're not mistaken. You're listening to the right show. This is the HSP AEW Dynamite recap, talking about Fyter Fest Night 2, folks, with my tag team partner, the scoundrel Jeff Martin. I am the trendsetter, Bryan Perga. Guys, talking about Fyter Fest, like I said before, what a night, Jeff. But first and foremost, how you doing? That is great, Jeff. No, honestly, how you doing?
I am doing tremendous. What a killer intro. And that's right, you guys want more. So we're going to be covering AEW. It was a little tease there last time we did the SmackDown review. We were talking a little bit about Fyter Fest, and we have a surprise and announcement for you, is that we will be now covering AEW on the unofficial WWE podcast. And what a way to get it started by covering AEW Fyter Fest Part 2. And man, did it not disappoint.
It did not disappoint, guys. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms, on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can find the High Spot Podcast, just one word, at High Spot Podcast. Make sure you also follow the show on Apple Podcasts, where all great podcasts are available. Jeff, you're right. This night did not disappoint. I thought the first night was pretty exciting. This one, they were leaving, I mean, you could say the best for last, but man, from top to bottom, I think the show really delivered.
There's going to be two memorable matches here, two very memorable matches that you're going to be talking about for the next couple days here. We had a little bit of a tease of what was going to happen between Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy, but then you had the Young Bucks teaming up with FTR, and they took on Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Bros. We're going to get into that. That matchup really stood out to me. But, I mean, we here are going to do something a little different. We're gonna go maybe not in order, so we're going to go here and there. What matches impacted us the most? And I got to say one thing, Trendsetter. For me, it was Le Champion, Chris Jericho. I can't say any more good things about Chris Jericho.
As I say, you can always say good things.
You can always drop him compliments against Orange Cassidy.
I know,
what a difference of styles, but they made it work. And all I can say is that Chris Jericho, to me, is what's really missing if you go to the WWE product, because there's no legend, there is no star of Jericho's caliber that can make a young guy, and that is what Chris Jericho did again. You saw him do that with Darby Allin, and you saw him do the same thing. That rub that he gave Darby Allin, he gave Orange Cassidy, and wow, Orange Cassidy today showed you something, that he is very impressive, he is very talented, and he definitely could be one of the future cornerstones for AEW. So I want to start off with Jericho and Orange Cassidy, and to me, it delivered. What did you think?
In terms of delivery, it was like if you weren't expecting anything, you were pleasantly surprised. I mean, talk about a guy like Orange Cassidy, where they say in this industry less is more. He was really showing you a lot less, but showed you another side of him in terms of we've seen the ability, glimpses here and there where he can perform. He can do things out of the ordinary, which isn't usually in his moniker, isn't in his wheelhouse in terms of what his character presents to you on TV or if you've seen them on the indies. Again, if I'm going to pay another compliment to Chris Jericho, it's just the major factor that, you know, a guy like Chris Jericho can work with anybody. I think that's what you need nowadays, which you find very rarely of in any industry, whether we're talking about WWE, whether you're talking about Ring of Honor, whether you're talking about Impact, whether you're talking about what we're currently talking about right now, AEW, to find individuals that can literally work with anybody. I don't mean it has to be a 5-star, 7-star Dave Meltzer, 20-star match. You have the ability of doing something in terms of what I thought this match was, old school psychology. You had great timing, not necessarily timing in terms of moveset for moveset, but timing in terms of certain moves were done for particular reasons, and there was meaning behind it. So I really think they delivered. I think, again, this just re-emphasizes the importance of having a veteran like Chris Jericho, why people call him the GOAT. But again, I think he just has a good idea in terms of what people want and bringing a little bit of old school into this new generation of wrestling that we're looking at. Then a guy like Orange Cassidy, too, which not a lot of people know who he is. They're intrigued by his demeanor, his character.
Understand him. They don't
understand him. Well, hopefully after tonight, you understand him a little bit more after his main event match. And again, being in the main event with a guy like Chris Jericho, there's a lot of pressure in terms of that. Not just because you're in the ring with Chris Jericho, but you are trusted to close out the show. And what a way it did. I think it delivered. There are going to be haters back and forth saying, it was boring, it was stale, we're expecting this, we're expecting that. But ultimately, at the end,
not believable because of the whole, Chris Jericho uses the bat and then does the code breaker, which is said on air, which I don't know if they can use that or not, but they did say code breaker, and then Orange Cassidy kicks out. So you're like, we could have done without the bat there. If you just would have kicked out of the code breaker, it would have been a little bit more believable. But when you get hit by a bat and the code breaker, technically you're not supposed to kick out of that.
Well, again, this is wrestling, folks, so,
But I want to say, though, Chris Jericho, this is why I always say this, is he is worth his weight in gold, because what he did today was something that, again, only he has done well in the last few years. You can put guys like Brock Lesnar, too, because Brock Lesnar sells, man. He sells his butt off. So does Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho sells. He knows the art. He knows how to get that person over. And if anything, what he's done in this match with Orange Cassidy is get Orange Cassidy even more over, because we knew we liked his mannerisms, we liked his his very nonchalant manner of being, but this one solidified it to me. Chris Jericho really put Orange Cassidy on another level.
And one final thing about that, too, Orange Cassidy, like you mentioned, had all those qualities, has this kind of quiet charisma, which is what makes him intriguing, that when he first debuted in AEW, the crowd was going wild, because maybe a lot of die-hardcores know who he is, but at the same time, a general audience is starting to just understand who Orange Cassidy is as a character, as a person. But another thing, too, that I'm sure a lot of people will be complaining about are going to be like, oh, well, Chris Jericho won. Of course, now he's burying the guy. Not necessarily, guys. He's not burying the guy by defeating him. Again, perception is reality. It depends on the manner in which you lose. And if you're trying to build up a guy like Orange Cassidy, like Jeff said, could be a staple of AEW for quite a while. I think that's kind of what you want to do. You can't just have him beat Chris Jericho. It has to mean something. So eventually, I don't think this is the end between these two. I think they have a journey down the road. But, man, what a way to have ended the show. And we're going backwards here, folks. We're going from the end to the beginning.
Because that, to me, was a really tremendous match. And like you said, Trendsetter, they plant the seed there. There is that chance for redemption for Orange Cassidy down the road. They could continue it. They could leave it. They could drop it. They could have Jericho go somewhere else. But right now, Jericho, what he's doing is he had his run into the champion, and now what he's doing is helping those mid-carders solidify themselves, because at the end of the day, you need people to fight, and this is what you do. You take these wins, and you have a good match, and you sell your butt off so that you have somebody to fight down the road. And if you look back at Chris Jericho when he was on his Facebook Live shows on Saturdays, at first he said that he didn't get Orange Cassidy and didn't know why they signed him, but then he took a step back, looked at what he did, and had his match with him, and then eventually said it was one of his best matches, best things he's done in AEW so far. So there you go, a guy that's open to working with anybody, a guy that is a legend, a guy that is willing to put the other person over, sell his butt off, and you get a great match between the two, which, again, plants a seed for a future match or a rematch again down the road. But well done, guys. Chris Jericho is the GOAT, like you said, Trendsetter, and Orange Cassidy has such a huge upside, because you know what everyone loves? They love the underdog.
They do love the underdog. It's a classic story to tell, and it works every time. The whole David versus Goliath type storyline. But you know what, Jeff? I don't smile a lot. I'll be the first to admit this, guys. I don't smile a lot. I don't show a lot of emotion, only when I'm doing this show, and obviously when I'm not seeing Jeff every single night.
And now I got to see you. Now I got to see you 2 times now when we record the HSP SmackDown review.
Salt in the wound.
And now I got to see you when we're doing AEW.
It's bad enough.
But I'm glad I'm talking AEW, because it kind of stings the blow of having to work with the Trendsetter. Although I like you more than you like me, though. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me, so good for you on that. But if you love tag team wrestling, which I've made it public, it's on the record, folks, that I love tag team wrestling. I think that's the foundation of any good organization. It's the foundation where you want to find the newer stars, the next stars out there. And if you love it, then this was the show for you, man, because we started off with a bang. We started off with the AEW tag team titles on the line. One of a team that's become one of my favorites is Kenny Omega and Adam Hangman Page. Who thought this was going to work, Jeff? This is something where when you look at Kenny Omega, you think single star. He's going to be the AEW champion for a long period of time. He just came off of New Japan fighting guys like Okada, Ibushi, all these guys. There's no way he's going to be a second fiddle or lost in the shuffle, but he kind of was in AEW after a while. After the initial opening and beginning of AEW, he kind of saw himself outside the title picture and realized, is is there a heel turn coming? Is something going to happen? And we didn't know for
Are we
quite
going
a
to
while.
get the cleaner? Because supposedly the cleaner didn't come over to the States. Maybe he left the cleaner in Japan.
Exactly.
And he was kind of in limbo. Another guy that was in limbo after having his opportunity at the AEW World Championship was Adam Page. And, he went through this transition, trying to kind of like distance himself from the elite. And then you get this guy who is just a cool hand Luke, man, drinks his whiskey and just beats up people. And you put these guys together, and it's worked.
And it's worked. And they faced another team that, although hasn't had a long run in the world of professional wrestling, but have instant chemistry in terms of every single time they've gone out there, they've had great matches with any teams they've had. What kind of pressure was put on Private Party, because they're one of the young and up-and-coming tag teams out there to work with. Even though Kenny and Adam are not an established tag team, they're still established performers, so it's just bringing the level up further. And that's kind of like, I think, the dynamic of what we've looked at in terms of, you spoke about the main event before, we're talking about this, guys facing guys that are better than them. That's the only way you're going to improve and take it to that next level. And Private Party definitely stepped up to the plate, had a great match with Omega and Adam Hangman Page. They ended up retaining their titles. And I think their finisher is probably one of the best finishers I've seen in a long time.
It's really
the last
good.
call.
Really, a mix of the V-trigger. And then you see Adam Hangman Page running
with the swinging lariat from the top rope. It's amazing.
It's great.
Perfect timing.
It's a double whammy.
Great sound. And that's a move, as we like to use the word believable, that could really knock somebody out.
And there's another case where losing is not a bad thing, because 2 weeks from now,
you should know about that.
I'm your typical loser, I'm the scoundrel, is that even though you'll lose, you actually really win. And at the end of the day, whether it's a month from now or 2 months from now, you're going to look back. You're not going to think about who lost that match. You're going to think about the match itself. And this is another match that's going to be well talked about in the next couple of days. And it's going to be this one. Private Party has not even reached their pinnacle. You know what I mean? That's another young team.
No, they're not even near their prime at all.
And, they have so much untapped talent that it's amazing. And this is where AEW has invested and decided to build their stars. It takes some time. It's frustrating at times, but for AEW, it's worked. They've mixed some, current WWE people. They've signed some guys, but they've never lost the sight of it. And it's about the young stars, and they've never really lost their eyes off the prize. I think WWE sometimes tends to try to do that, but then they see a bad rating, and you bring guys back like The Big Show and Randy Orton to feud. So I think that's where AEW wins in the end, because they have more patience and they're willing to push their guys even more. To heck with the ratings lost to NXT. They are thinking long term.
Well, let me ask you this, Jeff. I didn't get a chance to ask you this prior to the show starting, but what do you think of the addition of Matt Hardy? Does that add, does that take away, or does it just do nothing right now for Private Party?
I think it adds them, because you're putting a big name next to them.
Kind of a weird addition, though, when you compare Private Party and Matt Hardy.
Addition,
yes.
But still, I have to do that. I still think, though, in the end, it's going to work out well for them. So I have no issue with that, and you could see that they're two different characters, Private Party and Matt Hardy. So it's going to be a great dynamic down the road to see what kind of sketches they do and to see how it's going to work. So I'm open to it, but you know how I feel about Matt Hardy, though.
Is this a classic thing where opposites attract, basically?
Exactly. So we're going to find out what Private Party will do in Matt Hardy's world and what Matt Hardy will do with Private Party. But there
Scary
is
to think of.
But there is, their creative juices are flowing. This has got to be something that Matt Hardy is sinking his teeth in, and I'm sure Private Party can't lose here, because they're being associated with a legend.
Yeah, so if their creative juices are flowing, then they are drenched right now in this humidity that we're dealing here in the Northeast. But I'm not going to complain, because it's not 30. It's not 20 degrees outside. I've been sick of the cold for so long. So, hey, I can sweat a few LBs, which, Jericho has right now.
Yeah, definitely. And another good match again. At the end of the day, I think the constant will be that Fyter Fest Part 2 was really good. So, for us to start out our show on a high note like this is really good for us. It's really good for the fans. So, too, again, one thing about us that you're going to learn is that, we're going to call a spade a spade. If you don't like something, we'll definitely let you know about it. But we're not going to complain about stuff. We're not here to rain on creative. We're just here to offer our thoughts as fans. I know a lot of people get, their ratings or their clicks by bashing everything, but that's not what we're going to try to do here. We're going to be two guys, give you our point of view. If we don't like something, we don't. If we love something, we will. And then if you guys don't agree, definitely let us know by following us on all our social media at High Spot Podcast. Follow now. 3, 2, 1, and then you can, argue, debate us, whatever, if you think what we say is wrong. So this is another platform for us to talk about AEW, something that we kind of seen it grow from the inception, right? And so for us to be covering
it all started at All In, basically.
Yeah. So from being able to cover it now is something that we're excited about. So
very few firsts in the world of professional wrestling. But to Jeff's point, what comes up must come down. I'm not talking about Joey Janela, guys, and that match he had with Lance Archer, not Hoyt, Jeff.
Yeah,
Joe likes to call him Lance Hoyt back to his Impact days. But, Lance Archer defeated Joey Janela in a singles match. Joey Janela had a little help, too. I mean, obviously you had Jake Roberts in Lance Archer's corner.
Sonny Kiss.
We haven't seen a lot. We haven't seen a lot of Sonny Kiss on AEW TV. When he was signed by AEW, we were thinking, okay, here's the ability now for Sonny Kiss to get some television exposure, to kind of have people see him more on the level of not only what he can do in the ring, but in terms of who he is as a character. So it was a great opportunity to see Sonny Kiss as well. But in this one, I got to admit, I was a little down on this one. Not because it's a match between Lance Archer and Joey Janela, but I just like to think, whatever momentum Lance had building up, and Jake Roberts should do a seminar on how to do a promo and how to sell somebody in the room.
He's on the Mount Rushmore.
He's on that Mount Rushmore of doing amazing promos, and he does it very quietly. Trust me.
Doesn't have to raise
Trust
his voice.
me. I can't have the raspy voice right now because it's going to hurt my throat even more than it's hurting right now. But with that momentum he had with Jake Roberts and the build-up to the match with Cody, and now where he is right now, he's one of the quite a few other people that I can mention in terms of big men out there. There are not that many big men right now in AEW, or if you are, they're kind of medium-sized men when you look at wrestling standards. So they're not giants. So Lance Archer came in as one of these monsters from New Japan. We all knew him from TNA, and he traveled around the Indies, and he really made a name for himself in New Japan. Now the build-up he had by Jake and the amazing staff at AEW and their production team. Now he seems to. Now I don't know where Lance is going. Do you still feel like the momentum has shifted, or do you think it's just give it some time? Because right now, Lance Archer against Joey Janela, I know it's a match they had to have, but ultimately, I mean, hey, I'll give full credit to Joey Janela, man. He stood his ground and he took some punishment, but also he dished out some too.
That bucket on the table was nuts, man.
He dished out some punishment too.
There's a lot of questions I raise here. I'll answer your question on Lance Archer. Listen, before he left, he was making a huge name in New Japan. He was a United States champion for a time there, and then came over, signed with AEW after finishing up his obligations with New Japan. Do I think that he's kind of been a little bit left there out there in the wind? I do believe so, but I do believe that there is going to be a way to reignite Lance Archer, although it's kind of weird though because they had a great vignettes leading up to his matchup against Cody for the TNT championship. So I don't think it's a setback. I'm going to give it a little bit and wait and see here. You could say the same thing about Brody Lee. That's somebody else who came in right away, had the title shot against Jon Moxley, and then next thing you know, now you're like, whoa, was it the right move to have him lose against Moxley? But we're looking way too much early in their wins or losses. Would it have helped Lance Archer beat Cody? I think so, because Cody could have been the chaser, right? And then
but to your point, Jeff, you're saying we're focusing too much on the wins and losses. That's what AEW is all about, though. Unlike SmackDown that we talk about, unlike WWE,
that is true.
They focus on the wins and losses. No. They've made that since the beginning of the inception of AEW. No. Wins and losses matter now. What we talked about earlier in the show where, wins and losses do matter, but it's the manner in which you lose. It's the manner in which you win. For a guy who's supposed to be dominant, Lance had quite a go with Joey Janela. Again, like I said, I'm not taking away from Joey, but at the same time, it's like, you're supposed to be a monster. I know it's tough to imagine, Jeff, but it's like it's
been a long
day. I understand, but
year.
But okay. Yeah, it's like that guy who's just that. classic and movable force. It just won't stop.
I get you. No,
I just feel disappointed.
And
the
honestly,
air's been sucked out of me in terms of what Lance Archer is supposed to be right
and
now.
honestly, doing our homework, I should have realized that, yes, wins and losses mean more in AEW because you have the win-loss record. So
this ain't SmackDown.
No, it ain't SmackDown. It ain't Raw. It sure ain't WWE. But I think even though they matter, the wins or losses, I still think it's early. So I'm going to give I'd be more worried about Brody Lee than Lance Archer. I really would. I think this is a way to, re-up Lance Archer's momentum here because a lot of it was taken away. I would say, though, the thing that's been taken away the most from both guys is the momentum.
Yeah,
I think that's what, to me, it just halted abruptly, and you kind of puzzled because you're thinking, would it work if they win the titles? Would it work if they get that straight push? And then there's some people saying, like, well, they just came from WWE. So these guys, for example, for Brody Lee, he just came from WWE. So another guy's going to take the belt. I get it. So I'm going to do more wait and see on these guys, too. And for Janela, do you think that Janela has been disappointing so far in AEW? Do you think it's what he thought it would be after having such a huge reputation the last couple of years on the indie scene?
Well, I think in terms, I can't get inside Joey Janela's head, and that'd be a scary thing to do. But
White Claw, baby.
White Claws. If you look at his Twitter account, he's doing pretty well for himself. If you know what I mean, the guy's got great taste, But in terms of the expectation that Joey had for himself, I think you could say he's a little disappointed because he thought maybe he would have more to do or be more involved into more distinguished storylines. Granted, again, AEW is still very young in its inception right now, but also I think from a fan standpoint, the mere fact that you mentioned before that Joey Janela is so popular in the indie scene, developed such a great reputation of having some pretty unique matches. Obviously, you can't bring that over to television in terms of TNT and use that consistently because then you just become a stereotypical type of, this is the type of match you're only known for. You want to show more of what Joey Janela can do. Granted, he's been given opportunities. In my opinion, he hasn't been successful in claiming those opportunities. But again, yes, it's been a little bit disappointing with Joey Janela, especially if you're a fan of his. Yeah, I'm a fan of Joey. But in terms of what he's done and what he's accomplished in AEW right now, it seems like he is also stalling a little bit. But again, it's still early because, again, this roster is still fairly new for certain individuals, although they're on TNT now. So people are still trying to figure out who these individuals are. And again, 2 hours every Wednesday. And then you have AEW Dark as well. So they are trying. So let's see if things can change for Lance Archer and Joey Janela. Jeff, real quick, you mentioned in the beginning of the show, talked about some pretty impressive moments. And I thought the AEW Tag Team titles were a very impressive moment. Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy, very impressive moment to take away from Fyter Fest. But any particular moments outside the ring that you're looking at right now and be like, wow, that left an impression or that was a miss?
Yeah, we talked about it before we came on air here. You were telling me if I had seen the whole Taz interview because we had got teased that he was gonna make waves throughout the wrestling world after his big announcement tonight at Fyter Fest. And what we found out was that he is reintroducing and crowning Bryan Cage as the FTW World Heavyweight Champion. Of course, if you're a diehard ECW fan, you know what that's all about. That was Taz's identity. That was his own championship. It was his own moniker, FTW. Now, unfortunately, I cannot, curse here on the unofficial WWE podcast here on the HSP AEW Dynamite recap here show.
Hasn't stopped it before.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I you know what FTW means. So, to me, everything that AEW is doing right now is causing headlines, and I thought that this was interesting. You might think differently, but I thought this is one of the memorable moments here. And Bryan Cage, man, I'm looking forward to their match next week. Bryan Cage and Jon Moxley will take place. So now Moxley has his title. Bryan Cage has his unofficial title, but we know that Taz recognizes it. And, man, I'm telling you, that is going to be a contrast of styles, power, and just insanity in the ring with Moxley. We'll see how that goes next week.
Well, yeah, we definitely know, and it's no secret here, that next week Bryan Cage will face Jon Moxley for the AEW Championship at Fight for the Fallen. But, just going back to Taz's promo, my big thing is this, Jeff, and what you took away from it, you said so eloquently in terms of a memory, right? But who's it really for, though? Was it for Brian Cage or was it for Taz? Here we have Taz coming out, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, which I never am, because I am the logical mind of professional wrestling, guys. But it really feels like the way these promos are going about, and I know what they're trying to do here. They're trying to make Taz the mouthpiece for a guy like Brian Cage. We've seen him talk before. He could talk, but they kind of want to protect him a little bit, kind of make him more of a quote-unquote Brock Lesnar type of guy, have Taz be his mouthpiece like Paul Heyman is for Brock Lesnar. But who is really being promoted? I feel more it's like Taz promoting himself against Jon Moxley, which we're not going to see, rather than promoting Brian Cage. Granted, he gave him the FTW title, but isn't this all about the main fact, Jeff, that we're trying to get away from the past in a sense?
Yeah,
yes, we
it.
bring some old school there. How many people in the general audience who watch AEW on TNT, who are just watching this for the first time, who know names like Chris Jericho, for example, how many of them know what the FTW title is? I mean, they can go online and Google it. But how many people know that? Only people like us and the diehards that listen to the show
those people that
know what it is.
Or that were our age now know it, but unfortunately, like the 12-year-old, the 15-year-old is going to have to probably, like you said, Google it.
Yeah, Google it, go to YouTube.
Yeah. I
great
marked
research
out.
Tool.
I marked out because you remember he didn't say ECW, but you remember it was.
But is it really helping Bryan?
I think he's already solidified himself as a tough ass, like a tough SOB. So I think that I don't think you need to do any more.
Okay.
So I think he's a tough guy. So maybe it wasn't necessary, but I think it's just that final stamp that they want to put on Brian Cage. Maybe put an uncrowned championship.
See, that's where I disagree with you. I don't think it's putting a stamp on Brian Cage. I think right now it's literally protecting Brian Cage. What you're doing is you're taking the attention off of him, and we're more focused on what Taz has got to say rather than him building up what a Brian Cage is going to do.
It's a fair point, man.
John Moxley. So that's my opinion. That's how I feel about it. But I really feel that they're taking some of the shine off of a guy like Brian Cage, who's extremely impressive, great physique. But you know what? I don't think Taz is doing him any favors.
All right, but we're going to find out, though, the much anticipated match between Brian Cage and Jon Moxley next week. So I'm going to look forward to watching that and talking about that here when we do our second week of AEW Dynamite recap. So looking forward to that match a lot. Taz will be in the corner of Brian Cage. So and we'll see if Jon Moxley's recovered from the COVID quarantine. So we'll see if there's any after effects on that by Moxley, too. So you're talking about managers, right? So it looks like everyone that has a manager is very successful. So if you are really struggling or you think that you need that guidance, you might as well get a manager. And I think that's what Nyla Rose is going to do. She has stated that eventually she will debut her own manager because she's seen the likes of Cody with Arn and Cage with Taz, and they all seem to have that one thing, and they're either in the title picture or they have a championship. So Nyla Rose, with a manhandling of two wrestling talents there, made a point and made a cryptic message with the tease of a potential manager down the road that's going to guide her to a championship. The women's championship.
Well, Nyla Rose made short work of Kenzie Page and Kylie King. No question about that. I think the whole match lasted about 2 minutes long. So it was a mercy loss in terms of that and a dominant victory by Nyla. But here's another thing, too. Like we talked about Lance Archer. Nyla's been somebody, too, that had so much enthusiasm in terms of people were so looking forward to. She was very unique and very different. And some even compared her to like maybe a Nia Jax, though hopefully she'll work better in the ring than a Nia Jax can, and not really hurt anybody. Yeah. Hey, I'm not doing punches here. I'm just kind of stating it as it is right now. But with Nyla right now, it seems like the manager might seem like a smart idea right now. Especially when it comes to situations where you have individuals that you probably better having other people talk for them rather than them talk for themselves. I think the promo that Nyla did was kind of got his point across, but
you thought she's frustrated. She's frustrated
delivery wise, and her frustration is clearly shown there that it's not going well for her right now. So maybe this is a turn in the right direction in terms of having a mouthpiece or having somebody in terms of guidance. But here's the thing too, and I've said this a lot about triple threat matches too, right? Sometimes it can be overdone. And I think now the whole idea with AEW now is I think the manager role is being overdone right now. Not everybody needs a manager. And if you need a manager...
They certainly love that manager role, right?
They do.
They really do.
You have the coach for Cody. You got Taz here. I mean, you had it initially with the Butcher and the Blade, which we'll get into that match. There was another tag team match, a really good one, too, which we'll dive into in a few minutes here. With the Bunny, it's like you have all these managers here. Another example would be
Sean Spears and Tully.
Yeah, Brandy as well, and Sean Spears. And Tully's probably like, what am I doing? It's like, that's another whole story there. Like, what am I doing? I wasted my time doing
really
this.
Clicked.
Hasn't clicked. Not really. Though Sean Spears probably tell you differently. I just feel right now that's being way overdone. That's kind of the easy cop-out in terms of, okay, well, we know you're having issues doing promos. We know you have issues connecting with the audience. But I always firmly believe, Jeff, that, if you're having issues connecting with the audience, that's on you.
Yeah.
And a manager can only do so much. You've got to come out and showcase that talent because only somebody can build you up so much. You have to go there and prove in the ring. And people might disagree with me or not, but I don't think Nyla has showcased her talent in the ring as much to solidify herself as a top star. From a look standpoint, when you look at Nyla Rhodes and you see like what she can do in terms of this butchery she did with these two independent wrestlers in this handicap match, she's a wrecking ball. She's a powerhouse. She can destroy easily anybody. But how does that relate to the audience? And I think that's what happens. I think it's kind of a cop-out. So, announcement, okay, cool. Wasn't what I was expecting. I was thinking maybe she'll compete on the men's roster. That would have been pretty interesting, right? She's going to compete against the men and try to go for the TNT title. That would have been interesting because what a lot of people have been talking about now, mixed tag matches. People have been talking about intergender matches and things of that nature. That would have been a nice little wrinkle there, but she's going to get a Yeah,
okay. We'll find out. We'll find
see
out
what
who
happens.
that is in the next coming weeks.
What do you think it might be?
I'm not sure, honestly, right now.
Don't you want to take a shot?
Huh? No, I don't know. I was trying to think of some people running through my mind while you were talking about Nyla Rose and her announcement, and I can't think of one right now. I can't put my finger on who it is. Maybe next week I have some more ideas. It'll be my homework. I will get down to the bottom who I think will be the manager. We had some promos too as well. Darby Allin on Bryan Cage. We hope to see Darby Allin soon. Here's another guy that you're talking about who momentum kind of stopped a little bit after the match with Chris Jericho. Everyone loved him. Everyone was like on the bandwagon, and he's kind of like stopped a little bit since since,
it's funny his body hasn't stopped because it's a ridiculous amount of things this guy does. And the punishment he takes, and he still keeps going. Wow, ridiculous.
Yeah. And so then we also get Big Swole, who got served a restraining order, was not allowed to enter the arena. So she made the trip for no reason, but then we saw her later on as she went to confront Britt Baker because she knows, hey, that's the person who kind of put the restraining order on there, and didn't go well for Britt Baker. You had to call a doctor. You had the little sketch there.
Prince.
Yeah, a prince. And you get the little sketch there where it's obviously whole
Jeff.
Seinfeld to me. I thought with the whole Seinfeld, like a doctor. No, she's a dentist. You know what they call a doctor that failed medical school, right?
A dentist.
Exactly. Hey,
I can't say anything bad about dentists right now because I'm doing a lot of reconstruction on my teeth.
Looking handsome, my man. Looking handsome.
You're such a liar.
But
I love Rebel, man. I love Rebel.
Yeah,
I'm so happy that she's in AEW. I think what she's doing right now is I get a chuckle out of it too. But my goodness, Britt Baker. Let's talk about somebody who's done a complete 180 in terms of her character. And granted, she's dealing with an injury.
I love it. It's perfect. It's great heel heat, which is what she got.
Yeah,
she's getting. You're milking an injury, and that's where you can be creative, and that's why I'm taking a positive turn on Britt Baker because I did not like her promos with Tony Schiavone at the start. They kind of were nonsensical to me, and I was just like, "Whoa, get her off," whatever like that. But at the end of the day, I knew that I was
being nice there.
At the end of the day, she was doing her job because she was actually making me dislike her, which is a good thing. And now that she's doing this with the injury, hiding behind the injury, hiding behind Rebel. I mean, it's typical heel heat, and Britt Baker, congratulations. She's really doing her job of me disliking her, and that's her job. That's what she's doing, getting that heel heat, and she got it when Big Swole confronted her.
Well, I should know about people not liking you, Jeff. You do a great job at that. But, let's get into some more tag team wrestling. I mean, that's kind of the majority of what this was. The Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers. Good to see Rey Fenix back.
Yep.
And against FTR and the Young Bucks, Jeff. Pretty interesting dynamic here because you would think initially when FTR came to AEW, and it's probably like you use the word planting the seed.
Do you really want
to
close with Colt Cabana and Dark Order against SCU, or do you want to save the Lucha Bros Young Bucks FTR as the last? Because I thought we were going to save that as the last.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the Dark Order. We mentioned the Dark Order. That's all we need to do.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the significance of the match.
And
yes,
by the way, and the only thing I'll say on that
is
that Frankie Kazarian must have gotten in touch with John Cena's hair guy. That's all I'm going to say on that.
No, I was about to say.
I'm about to say that, and that's it. And good for Colt and the Dark Order. And to me, SCU, and in my eyes, is an act that was done in Ring of Honor. I'm just saying. So, I'm kind of tired of the SCU act. So now we can go to the FTR and Young Bucks, which is crazy, right? All the time with FTR, and it looked like we're going to get Young Bucks versus, the Revival or FTR.
Hey, you can't say that. It's WWE stuff, man.
So
we are the unofficial WWE podcast here. But come on.
They're teaming up. So, hopefully, by the way, hopefully, Matt changed the SmackDown Review title to Jeff, not Greg, and hopefully
I didn't bother looking at it.
Hopefully, yeah, I know.
We know it's going to be Greg,
and hopefully here when he puts this in the description, hopefully it's Greg and Bryan, and hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's
Jeff and Greg then.
Jeff and Greg. But I know I digress though. But this is the match to me that I'm telling you, man. You would have thought the FTR and the Young Bucks would have worked together for like years. Right?
You thought all of them had worked together for years. They all had amazing chemistry.
Oh, man.
A lot of people aren't fans of eight-man tag team matches. And Jeff, I made the joke in my head when I was watching this. I was thinking, like, did Theodore Long produce this? Because he loves 8-man 10-man tag team matches, whatever, 4-man tag team matches. But which is a regular tag team match anyway. But I also thought a lot of New Japan Pro Wrestling too. New Japan is really known for just bringing teams together and making them
putting them on. Yeah,
just put them on TV. This is what kind of felt like we're watching like New Japan on what's the channel they're on? Access.
Well, they were.
Their channel. It felt like this, but again, my goodness. You look at these guys, man, and they're just like so
I got tired
talented.
watching this as far as like, whoo, man, these guys were giving it 1,000,000%. And it's tough, though, right? Because these guys are throwing their bodies around in front of their peers. It's not like it's like I would love to see what the audience would have done in this. I would love to see the fan reactions to this. I would love to see just the crowd get into this match because I can tell you one thing, man, the wrestlers around the ring, they were into this.
They were into it as well. So was I. So were you, right? And I think you make a great point, though, Jeff.
This is a match definitely should have fans. Like this one, really, you would have loved to see. No COVID, no pandemic.
Yeah, that's
regular.
That's what we get robbed of, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like the audience's reaction to the Omega Paige private party from the Jericho to Orange Cassidy. That would have gotten a huge pop, right? And that's to this one. My goodness, the crowd would have been exhausted. I looked at this match, Jeff. When the match was over, I was thinking, oh my God, how'd you want to follow that?
Yeah.
But granted, there's no audience. I mean, there are people in the audience, but it's not the same thing as a live crowd of a whole building full of crazy AEW fans. But it's like, who would want to top and follow that? You wouldn't. That would have been your main event, in my opinion, in terms of rather than Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy. But my goodness, I mean, and again, I think it plants the seed.
Kudos to Jericho and Cassidy for having to follow that because they were able to win back like your interest because after that you kind of felt deflated, but then Jericho and Orange Cassidy were able to bring you back.
Yeah, it was the pace of their match to be able to do that too. But my goodness, the tag team division right now is
stacked.
Looking pretty stellar right now.
It is absolutely loaded from top to bottom.
So it's gonna be pretty interesting. I mean, can you imagine FTR versus Kenny Omega and Adam Page? Can you imagine,
FTR versus the Young Bucks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, this tag division is stacked. It's stellar, and it's going towards the formula, I thought, Jeff, that I've told you countless times. I've said on the High Spot podcast. I've talked about it on the HSP SmackDown review. I've talked about it now here. Tag team wrestling. People may not be a fan of it. I get it. Sometimes it's a little too much, and it's a lot of stuff going on. Sometimes you want that one-on-one type of thing. But this is how you build stars, and this is how you eventually, down the road, I mean, who knows? I mean, I love Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix, right? But somewhere down the road, I mean, Pentagon's been in singles action before. Phoenix has been in singles action before. But now when they do it, if they do ever separate, just an example, I'm not saying they're going to, they've already established themselves the guys that can go, guys that are super talented right now. When you can't showcase at all in terms of individual single matches, when you're not talking about the AEW Championship, you're not talking about the TNT Championship, you're not talking about the Women's Championship, which question mark, the women's division is pretty thin, but at the same time, tag team women's wrestling could actually improve that roster. That's how you do it, guys.
Yep.
You do it through tag team wrestling.
Yeah. And that was a great match, and to put a ribbon on that one, too, again, like, the tag team division is absolutely loaded. You have so many combinations, and that is one thing that AEW is really strong at right now, and that is the tag team wrestling. And when you get, 8 guys that can go like this and they can give you an entertaining match, makes tag team wrestling fun. And that's what we want to see here. It is a lost art in some other places. So to see it in the forefront in AEW and to be showcased like the way it has been since AEW's inception and the way it started on TNT is a good thing. And when you have the tag team champions who are tremendous singles wrestlers, right, and they can go, and tag team and be the tag team champions, you've got something good in the tag team division. So, loaded division and a great night to start the debut of our show here on the unofficial WWE podcast, the HSP AEW Dynamite recap. We're going to recap for you AEW from now till whenever you guys want us off the air and just want us covering SmackDown. But looking forward to doing AEW again. Little side story with us is that, we saw the Bucks' vision, we saw Cody's vision, and, we were all on board. We did All In, we did the StarCast, we did Podcast Row, we've covered them for Bodyslam.net, and to see them progress to where it's become now. And the main thing is here, you bet on yourself, and you see positive things happen too, and it's a great motto, great to believe in Cody, who's a great dude. And next week, Trendsetter, you've got Cody versus Sonny Kiss in the open challenge for his TNT Championship, and you've got Brian Cage versus Jon Moxley next week.
Not only that, Jeff, but we get to do another episode.
Oh, I know.
It's Fight for the Fallen, but you know what? The people have spoken, like I said before. They want a double dose of the Jersey Wrecking Crew, so we're going to give it to them.
Yeah, and we are. And then, of course, we'll be back with you here with the HSP SmackDown review. So if you guys aren't sick of us yet, here's your chance, because we're doing double duty. But again, though, thank you for the opportunity for us to be here on this platform. We want to make sure you guys also check out the great shows here on the flagship here, the unofficial WWE podcast. You got Matt with the Raw Reviews, Wrestling Nostalgia, Saturday Night Weekend Review with such stars as Mary Grader, Ashley Mann, Anthony DeMarco. And then, of course, you got us doing the AEW Dynamite Review, HSP, myself and the Trendsetter, Jeff and Bryan, not Greg and Bryan. And then, of course, you got the SmackDown review coming your way later on this week. So, Trendsetter, man, we're going to get wrestled out pretty soon.
And it's impossible. It's impossible because we do this for the very reason, because we love pro wrestling. We love how this world of wrestling has been. The mere fact you can't get away from it. There's always something to talk about, unlike maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So wrestling's all around you. You have the ability now to choose. Pick your flavor, guys.
Pick your poison.
It's AEW, a little SmackDown, a little Raw, a little Ring of Honor, a little Impact. I mean, again, you can catch that all on the High Spot Podcast as well, as Jeff had mentioned before. Make sure you follow us on social media at High Spot Podcast, all one word. Make sure you also give us a like. Click that subscription button to our YouTube channel, High Spot Podcast, and make sure you follow everything we do. Due to this pandemic, we're not going to a lot of events right now, independent events or conventions. Hopefully that will change down the road. But again, I have a lot of great content in there, guys, which we know you will enjoy. So you've been listening to the very first episode, which the people have asked for, the HSP AEW Dynamite recap. Guys, remember to listen to us next week. Listen to us for the HSP SmackDown review. Check us out on the High Spot Podcast. And remember, we do all of this painstaking, labor of love work for one reason and one reason only, guys. We do this for you, the crew.
Oh, yeah. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands.